Hi there, it's Mr. Clark. Welcome to the final lesson of the Clefs module, lesson Clef.5.2, transposing with clefs, going from concert pitch to written pitch, so the opposite direction. Still going to be the same sorts of steps, and there are a couple reasons why you might want to transpose from concert to written pitch if you have a score in C, where all of the parts are written in concert pitch, and you want to know what note an instrument is actually playing. Like if I have a concert pitch score and I want to know what note are the saxophones actually fingering right now, that would be one application. The other application could be if you want to just transpose music to a different key, not necessarily written, but say I have a piece in C major, and it's not a great range for the vocalists I'm working with, and they actually wanted an E flat major instead. So I want to quickly be able to transpose that to E flat major in my head. And you can do that with clefs. So step one, again, is going to be to change the clef. Now we have two things to worry about. What clef is the initial music coming from? Because concert pitch could be treble or bass clef. There are other possibilities. If your concert pitch music is an alto clef, if you're dealing with viola music and you want to transpose that to something else, then you're just going to have to figure out the appropriate clef on your own by thinking about it. It's like if you have an alto clef, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's where C is. If you want C to change to some other line, if you want the note, say, G to actually be C, then you'll need to figure out a clef that puts C here. It would put B down here, D, F. It would put F on the third line, or C on the top line, so that would be a baritone clef. Anyway, if you have a treble clef, and you're going to, if the instrument you're dealing with is like a clarinet or trumpet in B flat major, then you would change it to an alto clef. If you're dealing with a bass clef, concert pitch, and you have a bari sax, then you would go to a treble clef. In fact, that's probably the most common transposition that's used in high school band rooms around the country, where, like, hey, here's a tuba part written in concert pitch bass clef. You play bari sax, so you're going to just imagine there's a treble clef instead. That's an instance of when this would be applicable. Your next step is going to be to change the key. It's going to be the same number of accidentals as the key the instrument is in, but you switch flats and sharps. So like an E flat bari sax, like we were talking about, instead of adding 3 flats, like you would for E flat major, you would actually add 3 sharps. If you're dealing with some terrible instrument in F sharp major, instead of adding 6 sharps to the key signature, you add 6 flats. You go the other way. And then whichever way you went, that's the way that your accidentals will shift as well. If you added sharps to the key signature, you're going to go right. If you added flats to the key signature, you're going to go left. So let's look at some examples here. So like we were talking about, here's a bass clef part, in this case for cello, that I want to play on the bari sax. So starting in bass clef, I'm going to an E flat instrument, so I imagine a treble clef. Great. E flat major has 3 flats, so I'm going to do the opposite and add 3 sharps. Great. Then I'm going to look at F sharp, F, C, and G, and if there are any accidentals on those notes, I'm going to have to shift them. So I'm looking, are there any accidentals on those notes? There are not. Great. So as another example, here's a violin part. Maybe I want to play it on clarinet in A. So I take this treble clef, I look for A, and okay, it's a bass clef. Awesome. Bass clef is relatively easy for me to read, although it's, again, terrible to write clarinet parts in bass clef. Just don't do it. So I imagine a bass clef. Key of A major has 3 sharps, so I'm going to add 3 flats instead, do the opposite. And then any B's, E's, and A's, I'm going to have to change the accidentals. So here, that was a sharp, it becomes a natural. That was a sharp, it's now a B. So it goes 1 box to the left, we added flats, becomes a natural. And same over here, sharp becomes a natural. In both of these cases, the octave is not correct. This should be sounding 2 octaves higher. This should be sounding, I think, 2 octaves lower. The octave's not correct, but the letter names are correct. So as long as you know which octave you're supposed to be starting in this case, it should be the G that would normally be on the second line of the treble staff. But if you know that's where you're starting, then you can just read letter names. G, A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G, E flat, G. And then you're good to go. That is what I have to share with you about transposing with clefs. At first, it's a very confusing sort of thing, but if there's a specific instance where you're using it, like if you're reading a bunch of concert pitch B-flat clarinet music in tenor clef, or is that right? So I'm reading concert pitch music. I want it to be clarinet music. So see, this is a practical application I'm showing you right now. So that is a C. And I want that to be, when I'm reading clarinet, I want that to be a written D. Concert C should be a written D. So this should be a D. So now I need to find a clef that makes this D. C, B, A, G, F. I could put a bass clef on the bottom staff. That's not super useful. Where can I put a C clef? Oh, I can put a C clef right there. So if I imagine the concert pitch music to be in alto clef, then I'm good to go. All right. Take care. Have fun transposing with clefs.